So will Donald Trump end Russian-Ukrainian war, or is it all about simulating turbulent activity? These topics we'll discuss right now. My name is Iryna Uzlova, and today with us is Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report and Rashkin Report in English. Yuri, hello. Glad to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to see you, Iryna. We are seeing each other now almost every day, it seems, and it's exciting because we do it in English and in Russian, and we're glad to continue this explaining, kind of building our community of our listeners and viewers out into English language space. It's very exciting.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that in the nearest future we will do it all in Ukrainian too, I hope and believe.
Yes, that is my hope as well. Yes, I think we're getting there. I mean, I listen to so much Ukrainian, it should just start coming out of me at this point. But nonetheless, let's do this one in English.
Yes, but challenge accepted. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in Kupiansk, which Putin and his troops have never been able to occupy. Ukraine is attacking the Russian Federation, attacking 400 drones every night almost. Oil refineries, Moscow, Putin's tankers in the Black and even Caspian Seas are under these attacks. Now, Yuri, we can see who has the cards in their hands. Really?
We see that we have a president that should be concentrating on showing that the past administration was incorrect, that it was too timid in its support for Ukraine, and we should have a president who says that I will reverse, terrible policies and I will strengthen support for Ukraine. But instead, we have a president who is trying to pressure Ukraine into capitulation and not understanding that Ukraine cannot capitulate because Ukraine will fight until the last Ukrainian for its independence. And this is something that if we were offered to, surrender, because if we were offered to surrender to Canada, it would be kind of, not so bad. But I think that Russia is not Canada, and the United States doesn't have really a clue of what Ukrainians are dealing with and looking at comparisons. Because, for instance, I think drones is a really nice way to send a message of how vulnerable people are, how Ukrainian cities have become human safaris. With drones hunting, and this is not obviously not everywhere all the time, but how can you make peace with a country like that? This is just the situation is escalating all the time. And for our president, it seems like it's the constant search for who is going to sign this deal, the next deal that he's got going. And if he doesn't work, who can he blame? And he looks at this and then he says, well, Steve Witkoff, well, that's not, I can't blame Steve. Steve's a nice guy. I mean, he plays golf, president's buddy, what did he do? He's just really helping out. Can't blame him. Can we blame Jared Kushner? No, we can't blame Jared Kushner. He's a family member. Those are very prized possession in Trump world. So can't blame Jared Kushner. What about Marco Rubio? Well, yeah, we could, but Marco Rubio is doing everything he can to show that he is just as cruel and just as, the no guarantees until peace deal is signed. So he's trying to show this is not his fault, that this is all failing as well. Can we blame General Kellogg? No, General Kellogg said, we're 10 meters away from victory, or whatever the heck he said exactly, but the 10 meters was, we're so close. We're not that close. If we're talking about territories, we're talking about people trying to shift the responsibility for a failed attempt at a policy. And so can we blame Putin? No, we can't blame Putin because, he's that bloodthirsty vampire that Donald Trump seems to just really hold in high regard and high esteem. So no, we can't blame Putin. Well, who do we have left? Zelensky. Oh, that's right. Come here. This is very much a blame shifting operation while Russia continues to try to push its narrative and tries to push its terror operation and war against Ukrainian people, thinking that this under this pressure, they somehow will gain something. It appears that Russian forces are not able to succeed on the front lines, and they're trying. That's why they need Donald Trump so bad, because they need help in trying to accomplish their objectives at the negotiation table, things that they were not able to accomplish at the front.
Russian dictator Putin's advisor Yuri Ushakov says that Donbass is Russian territory. They will return it by military or diplomatic means. Ushakov also says that there may not be Russian military in the potential buffer zone in Donbass, but there may be Russian guards. As we can see, the Kremlin's goals for the occupation and surrender of Ukraine are unchanged, Yuri. Can we state that the Kremlin is simply using negotiations as a weapon, and that in reality the peace efforts of Trump, who is on a leash in Russia, are collapsing?
I think it's also fair to remind those who are listening to this, who are native English speakers, to what extent this is a spit in the face to talk about Donbass and being as part of Russia and Russian-speaking. People there have suffered more than anybody practically from Russian aggression. The Russian aggression is aimed, first of all, against Russian speakers and then people who at some point could have claimed some interest in being part of Russia. But at this point, this is why Ukraine fights so hard, because it looks at being occupied by people who do not bring any goodwill and just bring more terror and genocide. And so when Ushakov says that Donbass is part of Russia and it's going to take it one way or another, it highlights that these bloodthirsty vampires, I mean, it almost practically, it feels like they have blood dripping from their, claws, and because it's just so inhumane, so lacking in empathy, trying to understand a world that is so much more complex than what they think it is, because they don't see certain colors of the rainbow. For them, they're just, except for threats, except for violence, there's no other miracles. And so Russia is going to do what Russia does, and you might as well face it, that's what, that Russia thinks that it's doing well enough that it doesn't need to change its approach. There's this, in rhetoric, there's a problem cause solution, where you have to first persuade people there's a problem, then there's a cause to this problem, then they'll be willing to listen to a solution. And the first part is people have to believe there's a problem. If there is no problem, then they're not going to change their solution. And we see this throughout history. So in Ushakov's case, we just see a state that thinks that it's doing well enough. And that's why Ukraine needs to be continuously hitting the oil refineries, because it's not about reaching the brain center there with the Russian regime. They're going to think that they're just going to keep doing what they're doing unless they get what they want to get, because they think they'll get it. But it's about emptying out their pocketbooks. It's about emptying out Russian wallet. And whether it is done through their shadow fleet, which apparently, according to our own President Donald Trump, it's okay to attack and confiscate oil tankers. So, well, is this like a permission for Ukrainians to do that? This is all just different world in which Russia is trying to communicate, and all it's sending a message is that it is struggling and it needs to be stopped on the level of disabling this machine. And this machine can only be disabled by emptying out its wallets. And I think that's where attacks are so important. On the oil refineries, this is where Shadow Fleet can play an important part, and this is where taking Russian money and from frozen in the West, that we now see Russia is finally starting to sue for that money, because they're getting nervous because they know they're not getting it back. And so they're using all of this. Is not, well, we haven't used it, we haven't even tried getting it. They're trying everything now. And if Europe is serious, Europe needs to take that Russian money and it needs to spend it on Ukraine quickly, because that's going to send a message that it's going to hit where Russia cares, wallet. It's got to be not the people's pocket wallet. No, that doesn't matter. It's Putin's wallet. It's his ability to wage war. The war has to be more expensive than the money he is bringing in, than the money he has. This has to be just a toy he can no longer afford to have.
But we pay Donald Trump for all American weapons, and he recognized that he doesn't give us any money, any weapon, and he even often really proud because of it. But I don't see any reasons to be proud of such things. But for Donald Trump, it's or he wish a big business with or big deals with Russian Federation. But we see that Russian Federation is really in a rather bad situation, under attacks and under one step before economic crisis.
Yes, and Trump could have been much more successful if he decided to finish Putin off rather than trying to rescue him and now have this crazy idea about rebuilding Russia the same ways we're going to rebuild Ukraine. It's not surprising because for the last year it was obvious that he was going to try to remove all the sanctions, to try to bring Russia back. This is part of the reason that meetings of G20, G7 were having such problems in the first term of Trump, because he kept trying to bring Putin into the room. This is not new. The interesting thing to me was, I suppose, a year ago, is to see if Trump will, since he's not going to help Ukraine, but if he actually just going to walk away and say, you know what? You guys, I'm an isolationist. MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. If you, Europe over there, want to fight your wars, then you do that. I'm not going to be a part of it. I'm going to be like the second coming of Monroe. I'm going to be dealing with Canada. I'm going to be dealing with Greenland and Venezuela. That would have been one kind of crazy. But we instead see that Trump wants to very much still be engaged and still continue to push Europe to try to push it away from Ukraine. And of course, that is, for whatever explanation Trump may want to give, this is directly helping Putin. So this means that we are not just salesmen, women of arms, and we are not the arsenal of democracy, but for money now, not for free, like with Biden was. That Biden, he fell asleep at things. Now Trump falls asleep at the department meetings, whatever. So this is the kind of president we have, but we're not just selling things, not to mention that we have Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll, who travels to Ukraine, and from what I'm hearing, announces that we can't produce enough weapons because, well, let's be realistic. So this constant idea of realism, somehow it pushes Ukraine in Russian arms, even though reality doesn't support it on any part. It doesn't support it in terms of Russia winning, because Russia is not winning, and it doesn't support it from the Americans being tired of this, because Americans continue to support Ukraine. So we just have these two leaders at the top who are trying to make this deal and cut out Ukraine, American people, and Europe out of this, and just push Ukraine into a bad deal. Because in part, I think that Trump thinks that he can intimidate enough Zelensky and his people. They've got rid of this bad Yermak. They've got rid of some of those people, but they can just really push through, and with incentives, with different things, 10 years off without tariffs. It's much better than tomahawks or whatever it is that Witkoff said over there when he was trying to promote the idea of peace with trade instead of weapons. Trump doesn't have to intimidate every Ukrainian, but he can create a conflict situation between Zelensky and Ukrainians who will never accept this, and therefore, for him, it's all the same to Trump, which is why I think it was really such a good move on Zelensky's part to shift the responsibility to the people of Ukraine via referendum, and saying that this needs to be decided on a referendum, because it's certain things have benefit of also not just being a good political decision, but also being true, because this is a good diplomacy, because it extends the time. Because how can you have a referendum if there's people shooting and drones flying around hunting? You can't have fair elections. I mean, Trump knows all about fair elections, right? All about respecting election results, right? right? Anyway,
Yes, and
so
how?
this take. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
I must clarify. How can our soldiers vote on referendum or elections? How can our people who should change their lifestyle and life places because of regular Putin attacks can vote? How internally displaced people can take part in these elections or referendum? It's unrealistic thing. Or maybe Trump can give us such security guarantees or take pressure against Putin to make this process realistic.
And that's why the referendum is the right solution here, because it also the only way to legally change boundaries and borders, and it also highlights to what extent that solution is not really implementable right now. Because for all the reasons you listed and a couple of others, but I think that it's just trying to shove some common sense in the face of Donald Trump so that he can come up with some other excuse why it is, try to show that this is Ukraine's fault. Ultimately, we see Trump trying to do what he's trying to do, and everybody else is looking at this and saying no. But Trump is president of the United States, and that has to be acknowledged. That means that when people ask me all the time, why are Democrats silent? I find this so fascinating when I hear this from Russian speakers, because such a big topic, they go, okay, Trump is what it is, but where's the opposition? And I say, well, the opposition is opposition. Trump has the levers of power. Democrats are doing fine, thank you very much. They're winning every election in sight. They just won mayor of Miami. After like 30 years, they didn't have a mayor Democrat. Now there's going to be mayor Democrat. In New York, Democrats are doing so well. The top two candidates for mayor were both Democrats. So, the Democrats are not being silent, but yet when it comes to international relations, internet foreign affairs, our president has a tremendous amount of power, and he's exercising it by trying to pressure Ukraine into what seems like fulfilling his own obligations and agreements that he may have with, Russians. So we have to just remember that this president is getting weaker all the time. His support is collapsing. Economy, immigration, crime, all of it is going out of control. People don't feel the economy is doing well. The latest AP poll says 68% of people feel the economy is poor. This is not a good situation. So for Trump, trying to be successful in foreign relations is both kind of historically accurate. That's what presidents do in second term, highlights what a lame duck he is, but it also tries to use leverage where he thinks he might have it, where he has the least amount of checks and balances, even though we see that Senate already is calling to responsibility Secretary Hegseth for what happened in Caribbean, because when we have 80 people or so killed and there's no evidence, no proof, no film, there's nothing, then that's when we see, then we start saying, do we have a war crime without a war occurring in front of us? So there's some really interesting questions that are being raised, but I just want to assure everyone the Democrats are not being silent. Democrats are being very, very loud, and they're doing pretty well, but it's not fast enough. We need the cavalry to arrive right now and to scare off all the gangsters that are trying to take over town. But until then, as they say in Russian, the rescuing of those drowning is the responsibility of those drowning. No one's going to save us Americans from our own leader, except for us. So that means the responsibility lies with us as Americans to take care of it.
Yes, we should be faster everywhere, not only American politicians, but we see it about European leaders too. And, Yuri, talking about European role, how do you think is Trump ready to take into account the opinion of Ukraine and Europe together, our European partners, or is he leading to a split in transatlantic unity at all?
Trump listens to those that speak well of him, and as long as people speak well of him, that keeps him interested. But he is also trying to take the money here, and the money is kind of important. So I think that Europeans can be. It's hard for them to keep saying hello and be nice to each other when they could be losing the money that they need to pay for Ukraine for the next possibly 2 years.
And for their security, also, according to national American new security strategy, everybody should pay for themselves and that's all. And United States somewhere abroad.
Yes, I think that the national security document is both scary and a reminder that we have Trump in power, which means that everything's negotiable. Everything can be negotiated a little bit more for a little better deal. When they gave Ukraine that 28-point ultimatum and Ukraine said, what? And the response was, well, this is just a first offer. You can just do this, So maybe the national security strategy is also like a first statement. It's a negotiation, the first offer. Well, let's see what you have to offer. Because we see that this president actually contradicts his own national security strategy every day. Because what he desires is stability. That's what this document claims. It preaches this is the holy relic that we need to have stability. What is this president do? He creates instability with everything he does, including helping Russia and trying to put his hand on the scale and change the outcome of these potential negotiations. Because everybody wants peace, really. Ukrainians do want peace. They just don't want it on Russian terms. And I think that for to Trump and Europe to remain together, it's what is good to be, if you have somebody who is like really sick, do you want to give them a big hug? Or do you want to say, you know what, you go over there, you deal with your stuff. When you feel better, come right back. Because at this point, I'm not sure that we're being such a good influence on anybody else. I think that we have a lot of our own stuff to deal with, but also economy is catching up. And President will have to deal with more reality because his party is having a terrible time at the upcoming midterm elections. They're looking at a thrashing because they know historically things are not looking good, but their leaders are admitting that they're headed towards a very dangerous path. And of course, they can complain that it's, because President Trump is not on the ballot. But reality is we are experiencing Trump right now, and it's the best vaccine against Trumpism is to experience it.
Ukrainian diplomat Roman Besmertny told me that if someone, it doesn't matter, Trump or Europe, goes the way of forcing Ukraine and capitulating to the aggressor, then they will make the biggest mistake, because it will not just be a ticket to bigger war. It will be a ticket to war which will be treated with astronomical speed, and it will be a direct ticket to a continental war and a world explosion, because Russian Federation, because Putin uses negotiations as a weapon. And Donald Trump forgets that principles and values, as well as one's lands, are not traded.
I don't think Donald Trump ever knew that. I think Donald Trump lives in the world of no consequences, He values, it was never anything that was even part of the negotiation. I think that if it runs, as it turns out, it's going to be somebody else's fault. He's never going to accept. This is why people say hypocrisy, because some people just don't understand ethics and morals and they call it hypocrisy. But in this case, he thinks that he can do anything he wants and there will be no consequences. And all too often he has been right, because he is, for crying out loud, President of the United States for the second time. And so I think that he can make his statements and desires and push his agenda forward, but it's whether it actually is realistic or not, what's going to be the consequences. He doesn't care if there's going to be a big war. In one way, for him, to make America great again is to make Europe weak, to make Europe, remember when America was great after World War II, because Europe was destroyed by World War II. Therefore, it's one way to beat the competition, to destroy them before you destroy yourself. This is a very troubled administration led by a very troubled person who is having a difficult time keeping his physical functions together, and at the same time has access to nuclear weapons. So I think it's both treating him carefully, understanding that he has a lot of lackeys surrounding him who try to make his wishes come true. And we see this when it comes to persecution of senators and congressmen who spoke out against military following illegal orders. So it's not just statements by Trump. There's actually also a mechanism that seems to be trying to, the persecutionary mechanism that does exist. And I think for Ukraine, which knows that it will not surrender, that it will not sign a second Budapest memorandum, which, by the way, I hear they cannot find the original version of. And if they can't find the original copy, does it mean that Budapest memorandum is off and Ukraine can get back its nuclear weapons? Because I think they would like that. I think that we're just moving into a world where there is no world order, where there's insecurity, where there's going to be those that are better prepared to deal with consequences and those that are less well prepared to deal with consequences. And Ukraine can follow an example of certain other states, including starting with Israel, in understanding of how to handle a foreign threat and militarizing its society. And I think that that can create a really good example for other states which are going to be dealing with its own issues. And I think Ukraine is showing a way forward in this new kind of a dark tunnel that we're in, and is a light that we can follow and support. So Iryna, people used to tell me, oh, Americans are so important because we're voting for American president. Okay, we did our part. But Ukrainians, you're so important because you're keeping, the light of democracy burning right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your support, for your words and your position and your time today and always. Yuri, glad to see you every day, in all languages in general. Thank you. See you in a few days. Take care.
See you soon. Take care.
Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report and Rashkin Report in English. My name is Iryna Uzlova. Guys, thank you for watching us. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels, War and Politics 24, Rashkin Report in English, Rashkin News. Thank you. Take care.
Follow me on Substack, please, if you'd be so kind. Thank you.
And it's important too. Thank you.